Welcome to Fireside Giants. My name is Alex with my co-host here, Anthony Rivardo. Today we're going to be breaking down some players who we think the Giants might be able to target as free agent trades. This is going to be really interesting because there's a couple names out there that really just bubble to the surface that, we've heard. Orlando Brown's one of them. Russell Wilson keeps being connected to the Giants. Deshaun Watson we've seen in recent weeks. Julio Jones has been a name. Chandler Jones was brought up earlier this week. There are guys who the Giants could look to trade for and really bolster some of their units, bolster their team as a whole. And they have some draft capital to spend. And really, these trades, some of them at least, are beneficial in terms of saving cap space, getting players that have low cap hits, and then extending them in the future. The question is, are the Giants willing to give draft capital for some of these players, especially some of the elite talents? So we're going to talk about a couple guys, but first we're going to start off talking about the Carson Wentz trade with the Philadelphia Eagles. They traded Carson Wentz to the Indianapolis Colts, what we think that means for the Eagles, and what it means for the Colts, really. Before we dive into this, Anthony, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good. This is about to be one of the craziest off seasons in NFL history, if not the craziest. There are so many superstar players, or at least big name players at the very least, that could be traded this offseason. We've already seen two huge trades go down at the quarterback position, which is rare in the first place. To see a quarterback get traded is very rare. And we've already seen Matthew Stafford get moved, which was kind of a huge deal. That is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL who was traded. And then we also have now seen Carson Wentz get traded, which was a very interesting trade. And the implications of that trade for the Giants are probably going to be kind of minimal because Philadelphia didn't get a first-round pick in that trade like they wanted to. They might get one conditionally next year. I honestly don't think so. I'm not banking on Carson Wentz playing 70% of snaps and taking a team to the playoffs. I don't see that happening, or even playing 75% of snaps. I don't think that Carson Wentz is actually going to, succeed in Indianapolis for 2 years and be a full-time starter for 2 years. But, I guess we'll see about that. That remains to be seen. That'll be determined in literally 2 seasons from now. So, really overall, I don't think that there is a clear-cut winner in that trade other than Carson Wentz. He got out of Philadelphia, good for him, and he went to a really nice situation in Indianapolis. But Indy, I don't know. I wouldn't have made the trade if I were them. And Philadelphia, they lose because, sure, they gained some capital back, but really overall, in terms of what they put into Carson Wentz, trading up to get him when they drafted him, signing him to that huge contract extension, they lost a lot with this deal. So Giants fans, let's rejoice. Philadelphia looks stupid, and they lost a lot on this trade, or really on this whole Carson Wentz saga. So we can be happy about that, but you never know. Maybe that second and third round pick, they really turn things around with that. I guess we'll see. But yeah, like I said, this is really bound to be an insane 2021 NFL offseason. It's going to be unprecedented, especially if Deshaun Watson does get traded, which you and I have discussed before, Alex. If that happens, if Russell Wilson somehow gets traded, the Aaron Rodgers rumors that keep swirling around every now and then, every 2 years or so they swirl around, they're heating up again this year. If that were to happen, that would be arguably the biggest trade in NFL history. And then there's a lot of other talented players. Julio Jones, Stephon Gilmore, Orlando Brown, Chandler Jones, a lot of really talented players. Odell Beckham Jr., a lot of really talented players that could get moved to this offseason. It should be really exciting to watch, kind of NBA-like with all the blockbuster trades that might go down. And I'm excited, and I wonder, will the Giants get their name in the hat? Will they even try to get involved with any of these big trades? I guess we'll see. It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, the Carson Wentz thing, just right off the bat, they gave him, $128 million deal with $70 million guaranteed less than 2 years ago, about 20 months ago. And now, they're trading him to the Colts. I think this is either going to be a home run for the Colts or it's going to be just a disaster. They're really consuming so much cap space. They didn't give a crazy amount, and I think they might be under the impression that he's not going to play 70% of snaps because then they have to give the Eagles a first-round pick. So they're going to be if they're in playoff contention, you're going to see them just pulling Carson Wentz. That would be hilarious, by the way. If the Colts were oh, he's almost at 70% of the snaps, and they just pulled him so they didn't have to give the Eagles a first-round pick, that'd be pretty funny.
I really think that if he's not proven himself as an established, franchise quarterback for the Colts next season, I do think that they will pull him. They're not going to risk
they will.
losing their first-round pick. They're smarter than that. Indianapolis is really
too.
Smart. They have an excellent front office. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, so you have to imagine that they know what they're doing with this move. If they've hit on so many draft picks, they've really done a great job with the cap space and really a great job finding the right personnel. But Carson Wentz isn't going to a team that has no playmakers and really a struggling offensive line, just hurt with injuries. He's going to an offensive line that is one of the best in the NFL. He's going to an offense with some really great playmakers. I think T.Y. Hilton's a free agent, but I imagine they're going to go out and get themselves a receiver soon. And then obviously they have Marlon Mack. They have Nyheim Hines. They have some really quality players that they can utilize. So I'm excited to see what they do with Carson Wentz because he is a very talented player. When he's in the right situation, I think his relationship with Doug Peterson deteriorated. I think the Eagles really just didn't put him in a position to succeed, and I think the Colts will. And that's the big difference here. We know what Carson Wentz can do. I'm really going to miss him throwing interceptions to NFC East teams. I'm going to miss him throwing interceptions to the Giants. And hopefully they roll with Jalen Hurts. I like Jalen Hurts, but he's a guy I can see the Giants tantalizing, every single week they play him. So I'm pretty excited about that. He's not the best passer. He's more of an athlete than a pure pocket passer, which is what we saw and why he got pulled a couple times. But for the most part, this Carson Wentz deal is interesting. They finally got his contract, but the funniest part of it all is they have to take on $33 million in dead cap this next season. So the Eagles are going to suck next year. They have no money. They have barely any talent. They don't have a quarterback that's established. They're in a disastrous mode. And unless the team can turn it around and really figure out the right personnel after 2021, they're going to be pretty bad for a long time. I think Washington and the Giants, if the Giants can take that next step forward, Washington and New York are going to be the big ones in the NFC East from now on. Cowboys, I don't think they're going to be that great. I don't trust Mike McCarthy one bit. I don't think he's going to do the great things there, but, you never know. Dak Prescott, if he comes back, they still have to figure out that contract. I hope they give him $60 million a year. That'd be fun. So, moving forward, I do want to talk about our first debated player here, and that is Chandler Jones, right, Anthony? Tell me a little bit about Chandler Jones and why you think he would be a good fit with the Giants.
Chandler Jones is an excellent pass rusher. He has actually dominated over the past few years with the Arizona Cardinals, except this past season he was injured, only played in 5 games. But he could be a cap casualty for Arizona this year, whether that is by a release or by a trade, because Arizona, while their cap space is decent, like they have a healthy cap situation, they're not in terrible need of money like Philadelphia is. Philadelphia is screwed for probably a few years with their salary cap situation, but Arizona is comfortable right now. But if they want to re-sign Hassan Reddick, they're probably going to have to pick one or the other. Do you want Chandler Jones or do you want Hassan Reddick? Now, Chandler Jones is probably the better player, but Hassan Reddick long-term might be the better option for them because he's way younger and he's finally hitting his prime. So that's kind of where things get interesting with Arizona, and that's what might motivate them to actually go ahead and move on from Chandler Jones. And the reason that I think the Giants would be a good fit is because, well, first of all, the Giants know firsthand what Chandler Jones can do to them, right? Chandler Jones in 2019 played against the Giants, had 6 sacks, totally demolished the Giants' offensive line, totally just screwed us over in that game. And in that season, 2019, he was a first-team All-Pro and he had 19 sacks. He is truly one of the best pass rushers in the NFL when healthy. If not, he actually could considerably be the best pass rusher in the NFL when he is healthy. The Giants don't have that edge presence. Now, we've debated before, do they need that edge presence in Patrick Graham's defense? You could say no, they don't necessarily need it, but would they like to have it? Of course they would, right? If you have the opportunity to get Chandler Jones on a pretty decent contract, I say go ahead and do it. I'm all for it. I think that if he can return to form, he is like 30 years old now, and he definitely, I think he's probably got at least 3 solid years left. And the Giants, all of their contracts have been set up to go for the next 3 years anyway. So it's kind of the perfect thing where if you get a guy who's got 3 years left, once he's done, you kind of have that money freed up. And you have a lot of other money freed up because a lot of these other contracts are expiring at the exact same time. So I think it makes a lot of sense. It would free up $15 million in salary cap space for Arizona, and then they would probably take like $12 million of that and just put it right into Hassan Reddick. So that makes a lot of sense for both teams, in my opinion. But what do you think, Alex? Are you a fan of Chandler Jones to the Giants? He had 69 career games with Arizona, 61 sacks in those 69 career games, which is just an insane sack rate, for an edge rusher, and two first-team All-Pros in the last 5 years. So what do you think? Personally, I'm all for this. I think Chandler Jones would be a great fit for the Giants.
Look, we know the importance of having dominant pass rushers in the NFL. They are the difference maker between good and great defenses. They get it done in the trenches. Guys like Chandler Jones don't come around very often. And when you have an opportunity to get a player like that, you at least have to consider it. Last year he only got 1 sack. He only played in 5 games. But coming off that, he was coming off 4 consecutive seasons playing every single snap in every single game. So With that being said,
And he had 11 plus sacks every single year he was with Arizona. That's
he had
something to point out.
19
It's
sacks in
consistent.
2019. He
Yes,
was a first-team
very
All-Pro.
consistent.
Yeah, the guy has double-digit sacks for the last 5 years before 2020, which is, I'm just considering that an anomaly. But you don't get players like that very often. He is turning 30 years old, so his value is going to decrease just a tad. Honestly, the 2020 season really probably helps the Giants, if anything, in trying to acquire him. And, looking at his contract, he has 1 year left, $15.5 million he's going to make, the $20.8 million cap hit. His dead cap's only $5 million, so it would be probably beneficial for them. Right now I'm looking at Arizona cap space, and they're at $11.8 million. And they're going to, like you said, they're going to have to re-sign Hassan Reddick. There's a bunch of guys hitting free agency they're going to have to retain. And Chandler Jones is the top of the list. He's making the most of any player on that team right now. And that's kind of the concern, right? That's where the Giants are like, okay, let's take that. We'll extend him. We'll spread out that cap hit over the course of a few years. Now we have our elite edge rusher, and we replace essentially, you're guaranteeing Dalvin Tomlinson is walking in this scenario. Now you have Leonard Williams, Chandler Jones, Dexter Lawrence, Lorenzo Carter, Ocean Exhibit is rotating at the other spot, and you have, you can get Alim McNeil. You get your guy Alim McNeil in the third round, let's say. That's a pretty damn good interior line. I think that would arguably be the best defensive line in football. If you had Chandler Jones, Leonard Williams, Alim McNeil, Dexter Lawrence, and Ocean and Lorenzo Carter rotating on the other side, I think that would be one of the best defensive lines you can ask for, and it would make the Giants' defense easily a top 10, probably a top 5 unit. So that's a pretty exciting idea to me. I'm totally for considering it from the Giants. Hit up Arizona, see what they want. See what they're looking for. He's on the last year of his deal.
That's just the thing, though. What would they want, right? That's
right.
All of these, all of these players we're going to discuss are going to have varying, price tags, and we don't actually know the true price tags. But let's make a prediction. What do you think it would cost to trade for Chandler Jones? Now, I know that on Twitter, when the Chandler Jones rumors just started a couple of days ago, someone instantly connected it to the Giants, said perfect fit there, and then instantly connected a perfect fit from the Giants roster over to Arizona's roster, and that was Evan Engram. See, now that actually does make a lot of sense, right? Imagine Kyler Murray throwing to Evan Engram. That is a perfect scheme fit for what Cliff Kingsbury likes to do. He loves speed. He loves athleticism. That offense is really, really fast, and having a really fast tight end like Evan Engram in there might take that offense from here to here, just take him to the next level. So that might be the perfect scheme fit, so I could actually see that. But I don't think just Evan Engram would get it done. You know what I mean? I don't think it's going to be Evan Engram for Chandler Jones straight up, because I feel like there's such a huge talent discrepancy there.
But he's a Pro Bowler, Anthony. He's a Pro Bowler.
That's funny guy. I feel like Evan Engram plus a 4th round pick, though. Evan Engram plus a 4th? That makes sense, right? Would you do that, though? And then you got to keep this in mind. You take on $15.5 million from Chandler Jones' salary cap, and then you extend. You could restructure it and extend it, so you would get that salary cap number down a little bit.
Yeah.
It'd probably go down to about $11 million this year, and then 13 and 12 the following years, or something like that, right? Somewhere along those lines. But Evan Engram and a 4th for Chandler Jones. Everybody, let me know in the comment section. Would you do it? Me personally, absolutely, I would do that, because Chandler Jones to me is one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. I feel like the tight end position is far less valuable than edge rusher and far more replaceable than edge rusher. So I would personally do it. Evan Engram is such a frustrating player anyway. I would lose a lot of stress trading him away, especially for a player that I know is really good. So for this personally, I would love to see this happen, and I really hope it does somehow.
Yeah, I mean, tight end's the 10th position on the list in terms of actually the value it provides a team. You're going quarterback, left tackle, pass rusher. That's probably what I would look at in terms of the value of a position ranking them. When you get a guy like Chandler Jones, he's going to win you games. Evan Engram lost us games. There is the big trade-off here. Evan Engram did, he was correlated to at least 6 turnovers last year. He had 2 fumbles, multiple passes that ended up in interceptions. The Giants, lost games. They lost a postseason spot because of his mistakes. So, he did win us some games, though I'm not going to say he didn't provide value at the same time, but you're essentially trading him. He has 1 year left on his deal. He's going to be making about $6 million. And then you have Chandler Jones who's going to be making about $20 million. So, you're kind of taking that cap hit away from Arizona, so that does have value as well. I think that Evan Engram in a 4th or 5th rounder would probably get it done, because at a certain point, they're either going to have to cut him or trade him. You know what I mean? If they cut him, it's just going to be up to whatever team wants to pick him up. If they trade him, you're getting the rights to him and then the right to extend him again. So you're really trading for him because you want the right for the 2021 season and then to extend him even further. So I think that Chandler Jones, He offers this defense a ton. He's your solution at pass rusher for the next 3 years. I think if you acquired him, you extend him for another 2 years, you spread out that cap hit a little bit, give yourself some space, and then you let Dalvin Tomlinson walk. Obviously, you have Evan Ingram off the books, and he's about $6 million. So if they did take on Chandler's deal, they can reallocate that $6 million from Evan Ingram toward his contract, so that takes it a little bit off. But it's still going to be a hefty deal. The NFL did just announce, though, that the floor of the cap space is going to be $180 million. $180 million. That's $5 million more than we projected at 175. And that's just the floor. It could be higher.
Yeah, what's the realistic ceiling, though, in your opinion? What do you think? Do you think that it can top 190?
I think the realistic ceiling is 190, which would be an
so?
$8 million decrease.
I think that makes sense. I do think it goes to 190. Personally, that's the number I'm throwing out there.
That would be a miracle.
We'll see.
A miracle if it gets
that
to
would be
190.
really nice. I don't know. I thought when everybody was saying 175, I'm like, that sounds ridiculously low.
That's what Dave Gettleman said.
The NFL, I know, but that's what he was being told, and that's what we were being told as well. But the NFL, I know they lost like a lot of revenue this year, but come on, it was the NFL.
NFLPA
they made a lot of money. They made a lot of money this year. The NFLPA should fight it, man, because these players they want to get paid.
Players gonna get
they need to get paid. These players deserve to get paid. So I don't know. I think it is going to hit 190. I think the NFLPA is going to push really hard, and I think that's going to be a huge help for the Giants this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, you also sent me a tweet yesterday, saying like there are people out there saying that there are going to be players that sign one-year deals, like monster contracts and just creating super teams. Like 2021 could be the year of the super team because players are going to look to take one-year deals and then compound that and try to get multi-year deals after next season.
Well, that wasn't just anyone saying that. That was Chase Edmonds, an NFL running back, who said that. That was him specifically saying, I think that my fellow players are going to take cheaper, or not cheaper, but they're going to take one-year deals and start building super teams this year just because of the salary cap situation. So the NFL, knowing that a player is already thinking that and that other players are already thinking that, they're going to definitely feel the need to push that salary cap out as far as they can to make these players happy and prevent super teams, because the number one reason the NBA is dying right now, if you look at its viewership, is because of super teams. No one wants to watch super teams anymore. People are sick of that. If that were to come over to the NFL, that would be a huge problem. I would get sick of the NFL pretty quickly if every team that wins every year was a super team. What I love about the NFL, as a Giants fan especially, is that you can be 9-7 and win the Super Bowl. That's what you love about the NFL. Everyone has a chance. There's always a hope because there are no super teams. Even when there are, let's look at 2007, 2008. I guess they're still beatable, right? The Giants beat the Patriots.
Even so, the Patriots, in my opinion, were never super teams. They just had such good coaching. They had such good coaching, such good scouting. They found value from guys in the late draft pick rounds. That's what makes good teams in the NFL. It's not, I'm going to go sign Anthony Davis and LeBron James and Kyle Kuzma and all these guys. It's like you actually have to go out and find 53 players who are going to contribute in some way or another. They are all contributing, and that's way more difficult than finding 5 starters who play almost every minute and dominate almost every game. That's how the NBA works. But I still love basketball, and I watch the Knicks. And as a Knicks fan, I'm really hyped about Emmanuel Quickley. So shout out to you Knicks guys out there and gals. Much love to Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett. Love those guys. Julius Randle, too. Sorry, I'm turning this to a Knicks podcast real quick because I got to give them a shout-out for the way they're playing lately. Really excited about them. And, we also have a Knicks podcast, so go check that out, too. But back to football. $180 million cap floor. It could go up to 190. I'm excited to see what the Giants do. It'll give them a little bit more room to work with. I think, we expected it to be lower. And with that extra $5 million, $10 million, it goes a long way. That's, $5 million is half of Dalvin Thomas's contract. $10 million, if it goes up to 190, that's Dalvin Thomas's entire yearly contract. Or you could roll that over into Curtis Samuel, or you could roll that over into Kenny Galladay if you trade in, if they tag and trade him type of deal. So, or Chandler Jones if you want to allocate it towards a pass rusher. There's so many different options the Giants can go. But I think Anthony and I both agree that Chandler Jones would be a great fit with the Giants. Just a matter of what they actually want in a trade for him. That's the big question. But another player who we want to bring up, and this is actually really interesting, is Orlando Brown of the Baltimore Ravens. So he previously played right tackle. They moved him over to left tackle when their starter went down, and now he's like, I want to play left tackle. That's where the money is. That's where I'm going to make double what a right tackle is going to make. So I'm pretty excited about that. Just his success there and how well he's playing. The question is, Baltimore's going to want to haul. And are the Giants really players in that market because they just got Andrew Thomas to play left tackle? He's on his rookie deal. He's only going into his second season. And he's a first-round pick, so you can really he has 4 years left on his rookie deal. You can exercise that fifth-year option. So, Anthony, what are you thinking about Orlando Brown? Do you think it's worth the Giants to even consider?
I definitely think it's worth it to consider Orlando Brown. I don't know if it's realistic because Baltimore said they do want a major haul, so they're going to really, they're going to stand there and they're going to be really patient and wait for the right deal. So now if you go look at Pro Football Focus, and here's why I'm actually going to put a lot of stock into this from Pro Football Focus. I'll explain. They projected a mock trade for Orlando Brown. They said Jacksonville Jaguars first round pick number 25 overall via the Rams, plus their fifth round pick for Orlando Brown. So a first and a fifth, a late first though. The reason that I put a lot of stock into what PFF is saying with these mock trades, here's why. Their mock trade in this article for Carson Wentz was to the Indianapolis Colts for a second and a third round pick. What did Carson Wentz just get traded for? A second and a third round pick. So I know a lot of people hate on PFF, but they do have inside sources. They do really talk to NFL general managers and provide them statistics and stuff. So they know what they're talking about in this article at the very least. So when they're saying that it's going to take a first and a fifth to get Orlando Brown, you better expect it's going to take a first and a fifth to get Orlando Brown. At the very least, it's going to be an expensive trade, So are the Giants realistic players in there? Well, if they had the 30th pick in this draft or they had the 20th pick in this draft, yeah, probably. I definitely think they would consider it. They've made a huge point of emphasis to protect Daniel Jones. They know how important that is. They want to get him playmakers, but they also want to get a good offensive line in front of them, right? So would they be interested? I definitely think the Giants are interested. I'm sure that once this starts to heat up and we get closer to the new league year, I think that they will call the Ravens and just see what's the price tag. I don't think they have what it takes to get him, though. I think because if you're saying first and a fifth, right, is a second and a fourth as enticing as a first and a fifth? Probably not. A team is going to probably offer a first-round pick for Orlando Brown because he is such a great talent. And the Ravens are probably going to want to take that trade if they feel the need to move on from Orlando Brown. They think that this isn't, something that they can patch up. Orlando Brown was an excellent right tackle. Then Ronnie Stanley went down with an injury. He moved over to left tackle, was just as good, if not better, which is super rare to see that happen. Somebody just move across the line and be instantly good. But I guess it's possible, right? So, but that ties into this conversation again because what are you doing with Andrew Thomas? Are you going to have to move him from left to right tackle and hope that he makes a transition and turns it around? If he becomes an exponentially better playing on the opposite side of the line, it's possible. Is it likely? I don't know. So then would you just say, okay, let's include Andrew Thomas in this trade? Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Would you want to trade Andrew Thomas plus a second-round pick for Orlando Brown? Is that something that Giants fans would be interested in? Me personally, I think I would do that. Andrew Thomas and a second for Orlando Brown. I think I would do it.
I wouldn't do it.
Well, okay, here's the thing. Orlando Brown's cap hit this year is only $3 million, but this is a final year of his deal. So instantly you're going to have to give him like a 5-year extension worth probably north of $80 million, right? Probably close to $90 million, realistically, if you're making him your premier starting left tackle. But the value that has is, pretty great, having a premier left tackle for 5 years to, to guard your young quarterback who's developing, right? Andrew Thomas in a second, it's a tough sell, but I really think when I look at it at the end of the day, I don't know. I have a lot of faith in Andrew Thomas, but I have a lot more faith in Orlando Brown Jr. He's already proven himself, and I don't even think he's hit his ceiling yet. I think he still has room to grow. I really realistically think Orlando Brown Jr. could be a top 3 left tackle in the NFL for the next 5 years, and I'm willing to take a risk, move on from our guy who I think can be a really good tackle, and just take the guy I think is going to be better.
I mean, yes, I understand the logic, but I disagree just because I think Andrew Thomas is going to take a big step forward this year, and the reason is he dealt with an injury the entire season, got surgery right after the year.
And I agree with that. That's why I think it makes sense for the Ravens to consider that, though.
Right. I mean, it's trading a guy who has 1 year left on his rookie deal for one that has 4 years left, and that's my big argument here. Is like that's why I don't think utilizing Andrew Thomas as a trade piece right now is should even be in question, just because he is a good run blocker. He did well as a run blocker in 2020. That was not the problem. His problem was pass blocking. And I think the injury hurt him. I think a lack of continuity. They were revolving guys at left guard, constantly Will Hernandez and Shane Lemieux, which hurt him because he didn't know who he was playing with. He didn't have continuity with either of them, and the chemistry wasn't there. You could see that Shane Lemieux can't pass block on those stunts. They were just getting killed. Toward the end of the year, we saw Andrew Thomas really take a step forward in terms of being able to reset. And even when he was beat on the inside, he was recovering and pushing them across the line of scrimmage. Like, there were some good things that we did see from Andrew Thomas as he developed as the season went on, but I don't think using him as a trade piece now is the best move, just because Orlando Brown, while he is head and shoulders better, and he probably will have a better career, if the Giants decide, Daniel Jones isn't the guy and they go out and get a new quarterback, Andrew Thomas will still be there on a low cap hit. You know what I mean? Like let's say Daniel Jones, he has one more season and the Giants say, you know what, we're done with DJ. We don't like him. We're going to get another quarterback. Andrew Thomas will be going into his third year and he'll still have 3 years left on his rookie deal. And then you still have that time and that money you're saving. Orlando Brown's going to make $20 million per season on his new deal, like $18 to $20 million per season, while Andrew Thomas is making $8 million. So you're seeing like just a ridiculous disparity in money. So you're saving $10 million per season that can go toward a receiver, a playmaker, a right tackle. There's so many things you can do with that money. I think Andrew Thomas is going to be just fine. I'm not considering Orlando Brown. He's the last person I would consider for a trade right now. Honestly, there's a guy later on we're going to talk about, Stephon Gilmore, that I'd be way more willing to consider over Orlando Brown, because if he wants to play left tackle, if he was right tackle, it would be a different story. I would probably have a different opinion. That's how I feel about it.
I don't, because I think left tackle is way more valuable, and the Giants, they have what we hope is the franchise left tackle, but they don't have the franchise left tackle right now. Orlando Brown could be that guy instantly. You know what you're getting. You know you're getting your franchise left tackle. At least that's how I feel about Orlando Brown.
That's fair.
And I would love to make the trade where we don't have to trade away Andrew Thomas. That was just a mock trade that I threw out there, but I would prefer if we do a second and a fourth. I would really strongly consider a second and a fourth for Orlando Brown and then move Andrew Thomas to the right side, because, when he came into the league, a lot of people even mentioned he probably will need to move to the right side at some point, which, is a topic of debate. I say he's a left tackle. Keep him there. Let's see what he does. But, 1 year in, a lot of ups and downs. I do see a lot of potential. I really like Andrew Thomas, but Orlando Brown, I like a lot more. And I think him at left tackle, Andrew Thomas at right tackle, I think you're looking at a really solid foundation for your offensive line for a long time there. But I do understand why you would not be a fan of this trade. There is just a lot that goes into the salary cap and a lot about, tying up too much money rather than having a low cap hit at the left tackle. I do like the idea of having a cheap left tackle on a rookie contract along with our cheap quarterback. So I see what you're saying there, Alex. And I don't know. Personally, if we could trade for Orlando Brown, make it work and not give up too much, I'd like to do it, but it's probably just not a realistic option for us.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where my head's at. It's just not a realistic option for us at the moment. The next guy on the list, though, is Russell Wilson. This is a guy that keeps being connected with the Giants. I'm kind of tired of it, to be honest with you. The Giants are probably never going to have Russell Wilson, nor should they even try to trade for him at this point. Although, you can make the argument that he is still, he still has some prime years left. And I think he immediately makes you a playoff contending team. The Giants have a better situation than Seattle does on offense right now in terms of their offensive line, I would say. But at the same time, you don't have DK Metcalf and you don't have Tyler Lockett. So it's a big disparity in talent. I think the play calling for Seattle was really bad with Schottenheimer this past year. I think that, Russell Wilson coming over here, he might not even be in a better situation. It might even get worse. So
it's definitely worse. It's definitely worse. The Giants don't have even a fraction of the playmakers that Seattle has.
Yeah, that's the big thing. And Russell Wilson is really good when they're running a vertical offense. And for whatever reason, they just stopped running that vertical offense toward the end of the year, and it really hurt them. Our teams figured out like how to just contain it, like the Giants did, really. And they were playing a lot of cover 3, trying to stop the deep ball and just playing deep coverage. So they did a good job stopping Seattle, and then teams kind of utilized that model there on out, and they kind of just shut Seattle down. So when I'm thinking about Russell Wilson, Seattle doesn't want to give him up, and if they were to give him up, it would take probably 2 first-round picks to get it done, maybe more. So that's my big concern. Like, I'm not giving away 2 first-round picks right now for a guy who's going to come in and have a terrible situation. You might as well stick with Daniel Jones and see what you got.
Alex, we're going to get into a heated debate again, aren't we? No, probably not. This is very similar to the Deshaun Watson trade, except there's a difference in age, right? Deshaun Watson's super young, but at this point in his career, Russell Wilson's 32 years old, so he is pretty old. But, you look at quarterbacks right now. Quarterbacks are playing well past
He's not too old.
Years old.
He's not too old, yeah.
He
has a couple years. He has 4 years
Quarterbacks
left.
are playing well past. I think he has more than that. I think he has 8 years left. I think Russell Wilson will play till 40. I think it's very common that quarterbacks are playing. I mean, Eli Manning played to 38. I don't see why Russell Wilson can't hit 38 years old in the NFL, right? I think you have at least 6 years left of. Huh?
He's an elite passer, so it's not like he's just relies on his legs. Like, he can do it all. He's not just he can stay in the pocket and be a pocket passer if you wanted him to.
Russell Wilson scrambles, but he's not a scrambling quarterback. Russell Wilson is just an elite quarterback. He can do everything. He can scramble. It's part of his game because when he needs to, when he's being sacked 40-plus times in every single season of his career except his rookie year, that's literally a statistic. When you're being sacked that frequently, you're going to have to scramble. You're going to have to make plays with your legs. They've never put an offensive line in front of him, and that's really been a huge tragedy for Seattle and Russell Wilson. I'm a huge Russell Wilson fan. I love him. He's arguably my favorite player outside of the Giants in the NFL. Huge Russell Wilson fan. He's been a winning quarterback every single season he's been in the league. When you look at it, though, the Giants have not been winning. If they trade for Russell Wilson, I can't help but think they would instantly become a winning team.
Him and Saquon together would be awesome.
Yeah, he's an amazing, transcendent talent. He is going to be a future Hall of Famer. This is Russell Wilson we're talking about.
Yeah.
I would absolutely, personally, when you're talking about, we're in agreement on this. Russell Wilson will likely play till at least 36 to 38 years old, at the very least, but very likely could hit 40 years old. When you're talking about 4 to 8 more years of elite quarterback play, let's assume, I know he fell off towards the end of the year. He still threw 40 touchdown passes, only 13 interceptions. He was phenomenal this year. He was in the MVP talk for over half of the season. I would definitely trade 2 first-round picks for this. Without a doubt, I would do this. If I was willing to trade 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson plus Saquon Barkley, no doubt I'm willing to trade probably the same package for Russell Wilson. Maybe not 3. Let's do 2 first-round picks and Saquon Barkley. I would do it for Russell Wilson. And you know what? Okay. I know you just mentioned he'd be awesome with Saquon, but running back versus quarterback, elite quarterback, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, I'm making the trade, dude. I'm getting him. He's taking me to the playoffs year after year. He's already won a Super Bowl, and I have full faith that he can get back there with my roster, especially with the defense that the Giants have already put together.
Yeah, so the Giants' defense is the saving grace in this argument, but the reality is his cap hit over the next 2 seasons is $37 million and $40 million, and you're going to be in a tough spot when you have $0 to actually get, and you don't have any money for playmakers. The Giants don't have DK Metcalf on a rookie deal. They don't have Tyler Lockett. Right, but if you lose your next 2 years of first-round picks, you're pretty much dooming your offense.
4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds, dude. Do it. You can make it work.
You can make it work, but you need to hit a home run with one of those picks. Like, you need to hit a home run.
Well, you and I have discussed about, 6 different wide receiver prospects that we think are good fits in the second round.
I think the second round, they could get a good second-round receiver, but it needs to be the right receiver. It needs to be the right receiver. You cannot miss, because if you miss...
If you trade for Russell Wilson, you say, which receiver do you like? And then you pick that one.
Well, that's the argument you can make, but at the same time, and maybe it's not about Russell Wilson. Maybe it's about Jason Garrett. Maybe who knows? There's so many conflicting
fire
factors
Jason Garrett.
Here. Yeah, screw Jason Garrett. Yeah, throw him to the Wolves. Just let Russell Wilson get whoever he wants at that point. And the thing is, if you get Russell Wilson, you have to run a vertical offense. He's the best downfield thrower in the NFL, hands down. He is unbelievable. The way his accuracy in dumping balls into the basket, 30, 40, 50 yards downfield, it's insane. You cannot let Jason Garrett handle a guy like Russell Wilson. He will doom him to a life in the 0 to 10 yard range of dumps and duties, and I can't even... I'm done. I don't even want to talk about it. It actually scares me to think of Jason Garrett.
Yeah, honestly,
with
I want to throw up thinking about Russell Wilson and Jason Garrett together. I want to throw up. You've made me now ill. You've made me against this trade completely. No, I mean really though, if the Giants
there's a new illness going around.
Wilson, if the Giants were to trade for Russell Wilson though, I think you have to just find a new offensive coordinator along with him. But we made the same argument with Deshaun Watson. If you trade for him, because the reason we're keeping Jason Garrett around, right, is because we want the continuity for Daniel Jones.
It's what DJ.
It's an argument. I don't even agree with that argument. I get the argument, but I don't care that much about the continuity. But if you're bringing in a new quarterback, continuity doesn't exist. Just get the new quarterback and get the offensive coordinator that fits him. And Jason Garrett simply does not fit Russell Wilson. This is 2 different playing styles, right? So if you were to trade for Russell Wilson, you bring in a new OC and you try to run this vertical offense and take Russell Wilson back to the promised land, and I definitely think it's a possibility. It's something that you could do. I really hope that this somehow happens. I know this whole trade rumor started because Chris Collinsworth said that Ciara, Russell Wilson's wife, wants to live in New York and he wants to get out of Seattle, so it was perfect connection, right? Get to that New York market for her. Okay, right. So I would love for that to happen, but realistically, will it? It definitely will not. It never will. But in my ideal dream world, Russell Wilson's wearing big blue and has a big NY sticker on the side of his helmet, and I am watching him play in the playoffs deep into January, maybe even into February. That's what I would love to see.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Giants, for this to work, and I believe me, I would love to see Russell Wilson in blue. There's nothing better than seeing an elite quarterback that you can trust week in and week out. And the guy just threw 40 freaking touchdowns this last year. The guy has never missed a game in his entire career. He is not injury prone, never missed a game. You know, you do not get players like this very often. And if he was an option, the Giants would be dumb not to inquire at the very least, see what they want for him. But it would take a lot. It would probably take 3 first-round picks. Maybe they could do DJ, 2 first-rounders, and Saquon. Just say goodbye to everything.
And would you do it?
But for Russell Wilson, knowing how healthy he is, and if you could guarantee me he'd be an elite quarterback for the next 6 years, and that they would get him at least one playmaker and try to, I don't know, like, if you could guarantee me he'd be there for 6 years, I think I would say yes. If you could guarantee me 6 more years,
because I guaranteed you we had 10 years of Deshaun Watson for a similar price, and you didn't like that, so I'm very
no. It was the 3 first-round picks that deterred me from Deshaun Watson. If it was 2 first-round picks, DJ and Saquon, I'd probably consider it, because Saquon, I mean, I can't even trust him to be on the field anymore, and DJ is so unproven.
I made the argument for Deshaun Watson. I'm willing to mortgage 3 first-round picks for 10 years of Deshaun Watson. That's what you're getting when you trade for him. I'm definitely willing to mortgage 2 years of first-round picks for at least 6 years of Russell Wilson, who's even better than Deshaun Watson. That's me personally. I'm willing to do it. I'll mortgage a slight portion of this future just to have a way better long-term future. Yeah,
I mean, it's tough, but I think 2 first-round picks, DJ and Saquon, I'd do it in a heartbeat. I wouldn't even think twice to get Russell Wilson. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. You are trading for a Hall of Fame quarterback that has proven it. Like, Deshaun Watson is proven, but he's not a Hall of Fame quarterback yet. Russell Wilson is arguably one of the best quarterbacks of all time. He's one of the best deep ball throwers. He's never missed a game. He's coming off a season where he threw 40 freaking touchdown passes. Daniel Jones threw 11 last year. Russell Wilson throws more touchdowns than him in his sleep. So this is like a player that really is the epitome of elite. It's hard to say no, man. It really is. And thinking about him, even if you go out and get a guy like Terrace Marshall, Rondale Moore, you still have Sterling Shepard, you still got Dante Pettis, you still got Darius Slayton, you still got Evan Ingram, you still have some pieces there. Russell Wilson would make that offense average with the pieces that we have right now.
Above average.
Nobody different.
Russell Wilson, there's no way Russell Wilson plays in an average offense.
At least. I'm saying at least average. He would be at least average.
I agree. I'm surprised to hear
which
you
is
in
playoff
such agreement
caliber.
with me. I'm surprised to hear you in such agreement with me, but I'm happy you're in such agreement with me, because I think that if you have the opportunity to get Russell Wilson, you try your best to do it. But
it's freaking Russell
Wilson. It's not going to happen.
I can't say
it won't happen, though. So, it's a pipe dream. We can all keep dreaming, but I don't see this happening.
Yeah, let's move on before I get lost in the stars. Julio Jones is the next player we're going to talk about now. This is a guy that's been brought up a couple times. Someone that Arizona might look, or rather, the Falcons might look to move on from. Simply because his contract's a little crazy. If they can get some draft capital, they have a new regimen coming in. They fired their GM and head coach mid-season. So now they have new guys coming in. They might want to go a different route. They still have Calvin Ridley. There's some good tools on the roster that isn't Julio Jones. And his cap hit's kind of crazy this year. He's going to count $23 million against the cap, but in dead money, it's $38 million. So they're actually better off just keeping him a year than trading him next year, which is what Anthony and I talked about. But at the end of the day, the new regimen could say, we'll eat the dead cap. Let's get some draft capital, because it's going to be their first year. They might want as much draft capital as they can get, and the dead money for them actually helps their cause. They might be able to get more draft capital because they're going to take so much of a hit on the dead cap. The team that acquires him is going to have such a low expectations, like in terms of monetary. They're not going to have much to actually pay for in terms of the dead cap or anything like that. So it's a pretty good deal if you're willing to mortgage that and then turn that into draft picks if you're the Falcons. And then you have the new regimen come in and try to get their guys, establish a foundation with their draft picks. Whether it's a quarterback, they have the 4th overall pick. They can go after Justin Fields. Have him sit a year behind Matt Ryan, let him compete with Matt Ryan, then cut Matt Ryan after 2021 because he's an out after this next season. So really interesting scenario here. Do you think the Giants should consider Julio Jones? I personally am not the biggest fan, just because he has been injured last year. And, he is another perennial Pro Bowler, though, and he might be a Hall of Famer, too. So this is a receiver we're talking about. This isn't a quarterback, and I think it might be a bit too much. I'd rather draft a guy at 11 than give away some premium draft capital.
Yeah, Julio Jones is also a Hall of Fame talent. He's an incredible player, but realistically, I don't think this trade happens just because of the money that it would, eat up for the Atlanta Falcons. I don't think that it's a possibility for them to really trade him. I know it came up and it started to become this interesting trade rumor. Maybe they'll move on from him. Really, the motivating factor for Atlanta is because they've already got Calvin Ridley on the roster and they have the 4th overall pick. So you could trade Julio Jones and instantly replace him with Jamar Chase, Devontae Smith, or Jalen Waddle, whichever one you prefer, right? So that's possible, and that makes sense if you're freeing up money by trading away Julio Jones, but you're not. You're incurring even more money onto your salary cap, making things even more difficult for your team to build the roster. So it doesn't really make sense. In terms of what you would have to give up to get Julio, I don't know. 2nd-round pick, right? Probably. He's still really good. He's coming off of an injury, but he's still
a number one guy.
He's still arguably the best receiver in the NFL when he's healthy. He still is. And so if the Giants wanted to make that move, 2nd-round pick, it might honestly, it's Julio Jones, dude. Maybe I'm underselling it. He might realistically cost a 1st-round pick. And that, the Giants, they can't afford to do that right now. They're sitting there at 11. They've got the ability to just draft their wide receiver. That's what you do. You can't give up a 1st-round pick to go get Julio Jones. 2nd-round pick, maybe. I don't know. I just don't think this is a realistic trade. I don't think it makes sense for either side.
I agree with you, because he's coming off a season where he was kind of down, but before that he had 6 consecutive seasons with 1,300 yards or more. In 2018 he had 1,600 yards, almost 1,700 yards.
Like I said, he's the best receiver in the league when he's healthy. Yeah,
I mean the guy, you can throw him the ball every down and you're going to be a good offense. Every down.
He's had an injury.
170 targets.
Yeah, he's dealt with an injury from his rookie season till now. He's always had injuries. He's played through a lot of them. He's been really good. Yeah, he's played through them because he's so talented and he's on the field. It is insane, but at this point, he's continuing to age. He couldn't play through this last injury. Will he be able to play through the next one? That's a good question, right? Maybe not. Maybe this is the beginning of the end for Julio. I don't know. Maybe he gets a change of scenery. He gets healthy in a new place, and he has a really good ending to his career. But
his cap hit's too high for me.
Like I said,
it's too high for me.
With the salary cap hit, with how much it would take to get him, in terms of what the Giants are trying to do, rebuild through a youthful roster, I don't think it makes sense for us, and I don't think it makes sense for Atlanta. I don't think that they can actually free up enough cap space to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna cost $20 million for the next 3 seasons. It's not going down. It's pretty much staying about the same. That is what deters me. If it was like going from 20 million to 18 to 15, I'd be like, okay, that makes more sense. The Giants will have some mobility in the future, but it doesn't go down that much, which is where I'm kind of like, I'm kind of over it. I don't think they should allocate that kind of money toward a receiver who's aging. He's going to be 34 years old by the end of his career, and he's dealt with injuries, like you mentioned. I'm not on the Julio Jones train. I'd rather just get a guy at 11 and hopefully develop him and maybe get a guy in free agency and just work around that. But he is the perfect receiver for Jason Garrett's scheme. He's a big possession receiver, big body, but can also push the field vertically. If you're throwing him the ball in man coverage, you are going to lose. He is going to destroy you every single time. That's why I think he would fit the scheme perfectly, but it's too much money to give up. I'd rather get a younger guy, get a guy like Kenny Golladay. You're better off going and draft, or rather just trading for Kenny Golladay for way less, and then giving him a new contract that's probably less than that anyway. So that's kind of how I feel about it. He's way younger, has more room to grow. But the last guy on the list is one that Anthony brought up, and I was like, holy crap, that's actually a really interesting idea. So the last one is Stephon Gilmore. Obviously, if you don't know who he is, he's the star cornerback for the New England Patriots. And the guy is arguably the best corner in football. He is an absolute tank, and a player of his caliber does not come along very often, and he would count so little money for the Giants if they did trade and acquire him. Anthony and I talked about maybe a 3rd and a 5th round pick being enough to get him. And if you do get him, you have James Bradbury and Stephon Gilmore as your cornerbacks. That's like a Madden defense. You're automatically, if you get 2 guys like that plus Leonard Williams, you're a top 5 defense. Now you just need to use the draft to help your offense, and he's such a low cap hit. I would let Dalvin Tomlinson walk just to fit Stephon Gilmore onto the roster and under the cap. Like, that is how good he is. He is a lockdown man coverage corner, and that is where I'm kind of excited for Anthony to talk about him and what he thinks.
I'll make you even more excited. I don't even think you have to let Dalvin Tomlinson walk to get Stephon Gilmore under contract. If you're trading for Stephon Gilmore, again, this is coming from Pro Football Focus. I'm using this projection because I trust it, because they just projected the exact trade for Carson Wentz, right? Their projected trade was Stephon Gilmore to the Browns for a third and a sixth round pick. Now the Giants' third round pick is higher than the Browns' third round pick, so I think a third and a fifth. This is what we traded for Leonard Williams. I think we could definitely get Stephon Gilmore for a third and a fifth. And how much would that cost us? $7 million in cap implications this season. That's not a lot, dude. That's less than $7.5 million on the salary cap for Stephon Gilmore, arguably the best man coverage cornerback in the entirety of the NFL. Pairing him up next to James Bradberry in this defense that has Leonard Williams, you can probably keep Dalvin Tomlinson in this scenario as well. Because, dude, that defense, it's game over. That's the NYPD, the New York Pass Defense, right? Like, that is taking that team to the playoffs. You're not throwing against those corners. You're not throwing against those safeties. Scary good. I mean, you're talking about a guy who really is the best man cornerback in the NFL. And again, what might help the Giants out here, similar to the last guy if we were to trade for Julio, similar to a couple of other guys that we've mentioned, he was injured last year. Stephon Gilmore only played in 11 games. He dealt with an injury. That might lower his price. So that's why third and a sixth is probably what PFF is projecting. A third and a fifth really sounds realistic for the Giants. And another thing I'll throw out there is the scheme fit. Perfect scheme fit, because this is Stephon Gilmore. This is a guy who Patrick Graham has coached before. This is perfect. This is a guy who Joe Judge has coached before. They know Stephon Gilmore. He would perfectly fit into the scheme and perfectly fit into the Giants culture. This makes a lot of sense to me. The more and more I talk about it, the more I'm like, whoa, we need to make this happen. He can play in the slot, he can play outside, but really man-to-man coverage, that is a guy you want to guard a wide receiver in the NFL. It's Stephon Gilmore. He's, again, arguably the best cornerback in the NFL. Pairing him next to James Bradberry would pay so many dividends for your team, for your defense. It would make everybody better around them. This is actually, I was listening to a PFF podcast yesterday. Mike Renner, he's my favorite PFF writer. Shout out to Mike Renner. He was discussing this trickle-down effect. He's going to write an article soon about it. And he's saying that at certain positions, having a really good player there trickles down and makes everybody else better around them. So having a really good cornerback 1 makes your cornerback 2 better, makes your cornerback 3 better, right? Having Stephon Gilmore as your CB1 instantly makes James Bradberry even better because he's going against lesser competition, right? James Bradberry was one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL lining up against the number 1 wide receiver every week. Imagine him going up against a number 2 receiver every week. They can't even throw to that guy. That number 2 receiver isn't even going to get the ball the entire game. If the number 1 is guarded by Stephon Gilmore, the number 2 is guarded by James Bradberry, game over. That trickle-down effect that he was talking about actually has a lot of basis, and I'm excited to read his article. And I encourage all of you to pay attention to Mike Renner's Twitter feed so you see when he posts that article. But that trickle-down effect is something real. And in terms of when you look at the Giants' defense, it would trickle down. It would make even Isaac Yiadom a better player guarding the number 3 receiver, instead of guarding the number 2, in terms of the matchups that you create with this. So more and more cornerback talent is never a bad thing because you're just creating better matchups for yourself defensively and creating a higher probability that your cornerbacks shut down other wide receivers and really help you win the game, because that is a very valuable position in the NFL, the cornerback position. So this is one, out of all of these, this is the one I'm most excited for, the number 1 that I'm totally down with. Third and a fifth, give me Stephon Gilmore instantly.
Yeah, and maybe Bill Belichick's learned to give Joe Judge a family and friends discount. You never know. But in all seriousness, if the Giants did go to the Patriots, he actually might be able to get not a better deal, but at least get them to listen. You know what I mean? Like, he has a good relationship with Bill Belichick. He is the GM and head coach. This is something that is actually somewhat realistic. And not only does having Stephon Gilmore help the cornerbacks unit, but the best part about this is it allows Patrick Graham to go back to his roots of playing cover 1. And what I love about cover 1 is that it's a run-stopping formation, and if you have 2 shutdown corners who can man-mark receivers, it really allows you to blitz more people. And Patrick Graham loves to blitz. That is his bread and butter. If you have 2 guys that can shut down receivers on the outside, you can utilize your linebackers. You can utilize your safeties. You can utilize your slot corners. Darnay Holmes, I think, is going to take a big step forward. And then your pass rush. Maybe you don't get Dalvin Thompson. Maybe you can't keep him because they do have to allocate some money towards a wide receiver too. But let's say they have Leonard Williams still. They still have some really talented players to work with. They have Ocean Exhibit and Lorenzo Carter coming back. If you have an elite secondary, it forces teams to run the football. And the Giants had a top 10 run defense last year. And if they can maintain that, they would be unstoppable. Their defense would be immediately one of the top 5 units in the NFL, if not one of the best. And I think then it just comes down to the offense because you don't have to give so much to get Stephon Gilmore. A third and a fifth round pick It's not a lot. You still have your first 2-round picks, so you can still go out and get a guy like Kyle Pitts, Jalen Waddle, maybe Devonta Smith falls, and then the second round comes around, maybe Pat Freiermuth is still there if you don't go Kyle Pitts, who's a perfect fit for Jason Garrett's scheme in my opinion. Or you could go with a guy, I don't know, like Rondale Moore if he slips, an elite playmaker when he's healthy. There's so many other players, Terrace Marshall I don't think will last. Kadarius Toney from Florida, I don't think he'll last either, but the second round has plenty of players to choose from, and I think the Giants would be foolish not to consider an offensive playmaker depending on who falls. But the draft, they can utilize those first 2 rounds to upgrade the offense. They can acquire Stephon Gilmore, who is only going to count about $7 million against the cap. They can extend him and even lower that cap even more if they wanted to. They can do a lot of creative things. Kevin Abrams is one of the best when it comes to the cap space in the NFL, so I'm excited to see what happens here. But honestly, I didn't even think about this. This actually gets me really excited because having 2 cornerbacks of this caliber, is everything. Having 2 cornerbacks who can shut down, you play a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, you can shut down Tyreek Hill and you can shut down Sammy Watkins. You play a team like the Bills, you can shut down Stephon Diggs. You play the Cowboys, you can shut down CeeDee Lamb, you can shut down Amari Cooper, and then you just let your pass rush do the extra work. That is what good cornerbacks do for you, and we saw what Isaac Yiadom, Corey Ballantyne, Ryan Lewis, we saw what they did to us last season. They were liabilities, and they were a major reason we lost a couple of games. We lost a couple of games. We lost the first Cowboys game because of Ryan Lewis. He blew a coverage downfield to Michael Gallup. We lost a couple of games because of Isaac Yiadom, giving up some scores. I can list a bunch off, but the reality is having that Stephon Gilmore type of player at CB2 or really CB1, and then James Bradbury at CB2, you can't ask for a better combo. You really can't. And it lets Patrick Graham
disgusting.
Disgusting.
Nobody would pass against us.
You can't pass against the Giants in that case, and it would allow Graham to get more creative with his blitz packages, which is exciting.
I'll even say this: the 3rd and the 6th is what was projected by PFF, and we're saying do a 3rd and a 5th. Our 3rd round pick is higher. Our 5th round pick is obviously higher than the 6th. I would probably be willing to give up even more. I'd probably be willing to do a 3rd and a 4th. I'd probably be willing to do a 2nd and a 6th. Like, it's Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah, if the Giants traded back, it'd be fine.
When I think about how he would change this team, I really, really would love to see Stephon Gilmore. The trickle-down effect, like I mentioned, would just be insane. Having James Bradbury guard a number 2 wide receiver, we've already seen him shut down number 1 wide receivers. If he's on the number 2,
Allen Robinson,
Stephon Gilmore on the number 1, right? Exactly. I mean, this could be one of those trades that the Giants make, and it would be just like the greatest trade for them. I really think it could be. If Stephon Gilmore truly is on the trading block, which I think he is, because I believe they did listen to calls last year, or at least
it's the perfect time
got
to do
around in the call. Yeah, right now Giants should absolutely do this. You can extend them a couple years as well. Make it 2 years, so when him and Bradbury they can expire at the same time. You could do that. That would make a lot of sense as well. So instantly trade for him, you extend him, and like you mentioned, Alex, if you trade down, you get a 3rd and a 5th from moving from 1st or 11th to 20th. You get a 3rd or 5th round pick for that. Basically, you're getting Stephon Gilmore for free.
Look, Gilmore, this is the perfect time for the Patriots to do it. They don't know who their quarterback is. Cam Newton is not their franchise quarterback. Everybody knows this. The reality is they are in rebuild mode, and we know how good the Patriots are at scouting. So if you're adding draft capital, it's only beneficial to them. It's only beneficial to their rebuild. And the way I look at it right now, Stephon Gilmore, with a year left on his deal, this is the highest value he's going to have. If they they can't even trade him next season. He's going to be a free agent. This is the perfect time to do it. And they had a good cornerback. I forget who it was, but they had him playing so much. J.C. Jackson, that's a guy.
A really good number 1 corner for them. They don't necessarily need Stephon Gilmore anymore. Like, it's time for them to get younger, go through this rebuild. They don't have Tom Brady, and clearly they don't have a winning roster on for the Patriots. So it's time to blow it up, rebuild, and I think the perfect thing to do is to move on from players like Stephon Gilmore, aging veterans that still have value, because at this point, this is the last time he'll ever have value for you. Once you sign him to a new deal, He doesn't really have value because you can't even trade him. So if the Patriots are going to move on from Stephon Gilmore, they're going to do it this offseason, and the Giants would be the perfect team for him to go to, in my opinion.
In addition to that, they could easily, and like I mentioned earlier before in the podcast, there's going to be a lot of teams shedding dead weight, which means guys like Xavier Rhodes, guys like AJ Bouye are hitting the free agent market. The Patriots could easily go out and find a 1-year stopgap to fill that CB2 or CB1 spot, because there's going to be a ton of guys on the market, and then get some draft capital back from Stephon Gilmore right now, and then just plug that hole with a free agent because they have the money if they're getting rid of him. So these are interesting scenarios. I think Stephon Gilmore, man, that one, I wish we did this one earlier in the podcast, but this is a guy who I actually think would be an awesome fit with the Giants. Patrick Graham would love him. Joe Judge would love him. And the defense, if the Giants are really serious about playing through their defense and having an elite defense, this is a move that they need to make. This is something that if they hadn't thought about it before, hopefully somebody's listening. I'm going to tweet it out, get it some traction, and see what happens. But I hope they actually consider Stephon Gilmore, because this is a really interesting scenario. Good move by calling his name out. That was interesting. But that's it for this one, though. That's the last player.
For that.
Yeah, give yourself a nice pat on the back. Give yourself a nice pat on the back. Maybe a watermelon. I don't know. But
okay, that's kind of random.
I don't know.
I guess
I feel like in Florida. Do you guys have watermelons in Florida? Or is it just oranges?
Of course we have watermelons. I eat watermelon all the time. I love watermelon.
Exactly. So it's a nice pat yourself on the back kind of snack.
Okay, I will have a watermelon tonight.
All right, yeah. That's it. That's all I had to say. But guys, let us know what you think about these players. 6 players. Well, actually 5. Chandler Jones, Orlando Brown, Russell Wilson, Julio Jones, and Stephon Gilmore. The guys that we talked about in this episode, a couple of them we don't really agree on, but some of them, like Chandler Jones and Stephon Gilmore, really do make sense for the Giants. They really could be fantastic opportunities for them if they were to trade. But as always, guys, thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. And it was an hour long if you made it this far. Much love to you. You're an OG. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the YouTube, content every single day, as always. Making sure you guys are up to date on everything. We got you covered. I'm going to be away from February 27th to March 6th, but I'll still be recording wherever I am. So, I'm going to make it happen. Obviously, Anthony will be doing it if I can't. But as always, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you guys on the next video.